All right, Chairman. Is this episode 21?
Yeah. We are now legally able to drink in the U.S. That's right? Yeah.
Right. But we were able to do it. We were able to do it for a couple of years in Canada.
Yeah. Canada's the party country. Let's be honest.
Behind you right now, Grant, for people that are watching on YouTube, it looks like you're sitting in the tone boot.
Yeah. It's the swift right kick of the tone industry.
Well, I think that with that in mind, it's a perfect segue to the topic of discussion today, which is was submitted by some of the viewers that said the question was, what would be our desert island pedalboard, each of us individually on this, if we could limit the number of pedals to 5 or less. And so I'm curious, this is obviously a user-specific application, and it will greatly depend on, whatever it is that you feel like is, appropriate for you as a player. So I'm sure that we'll have widely different answers depending on, which one of us is talking about it. But it would be nice to know this stuff, and it could be perhaps useful to anybody who is considering sort of paring down their rig, and could also be helpful as an exercise just to think of, if you had to pare it down to the bare essentials, what would it be? But before we get into this, I want to remind people of a few things, a few housekeeping items. Firstly, we have a giveaway that is going to be running for the next month, which is a amazing giveaway. You get a Goodwood audio interfacer. Mm-hmm. You get a Vertex pedalboard of your choosing, pedalboard and riser. And you get 20 custom-made patch cables from Brian Omilion with mini cakes and Mogami cable. Again, this is running all month long, and the only thing that you need to do in order to enter to win is you either need to 1, subscribe to the new YouTube channel, Chairmen of the Boards, or leave us a review on iTunes, or if you do both, then you get double entry points. It's just like getting 2 tickets to the raffle. You're entered twice, so you get 2 chances to win this great prize. Again, Goodwood audio interfacer, Vertex Effects pedalboard, and 20 custom cables made by Brian Omilion. So definitely do check that out. We'll have some more information in the description so that you can head over to the website and that you can register for 1 or 2 of those things. Make sure that you complete those things and be entered to win. Secondly, we want to thank our sponsor of the podcast, the Guitar Sanctuary, which is located right where Brian is sitting right now. He's in the dungeon doing the pedal boards, but they have a beautiful retail establishment that sell not only Goodwood audio products, but also Vertex Effects products. Many things that we talk about on this podcast, probably even a lot of the pedals we're going to talk about today, for desert island pedal boards. And if you want to have a pedal board built, you can, of course, head over to the Guitar Sanctuary website, or you can message Brian directly to get your custom pedal board built. They offer services through the Guitar Sanctuary. So thank you to them for their sponsorship. Now let's get back to the podcast. Desert island pedal boards, 5 pedals or less. What do you guys got?
Brian, why don't you start us off?
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, I don't care. Okay. I'm gonna have to start off with obviously a tuner. I mean, no, yeah, because sometimes you can tune by ear.
Let's say headstock tuners don't count in this case. So if you really
you're ruining my whole strategy here.
So like they're included, like it's already incorporated.
It could be.
Let's say you have a headstock tuner that ends up on the island with you. So that's one less thing, and a lifetime supply of those
lithium
batteries.
Gotcha. Okay. So I would have to say my first one would probably be a Jackson Audio Prism, personally, as my first.
Jackson Audio Prism.
Yeah. Do we want to do one at a time, or do you want me just to say?
No, I think we should go. I think we should go for continuity purposes. Let's do it. Go through the whole thing.
So
Jackson
I would
Audio
say
Prism.
Jackson Audio Prism.
Okay.
One. The Teltronic Mulholland Overdrive. That's one of my favorites.
Can you still get those, by the way?
Barely. So I found one I actually threw an Instagram post out, and I had 4 people contact me, and they had like the really like the one like Nigel, the green and blue one like that.
Yeah.
That one is so difficult to get. But I had 3 of just the standard gold looking ones. I had the mountain one with the mountain years ago, but I sold that probably to pay a bill or something. So but no, I have one. I have one now, and it's my favorite.
Klon-based pedal.
Yeah. Yep.
And
it has like a noise filter cap inside, which is nice because it helps to really crank it without it being too dirty or too noisy, obviously. The third choice, I want to say volume, but because it's a desert island, I'm not going to be doing swells for volleyballs and coconuts.
Wilson.
Wilson. I mean, you never know. It'd be a swell time. But I would say, man, only because it can do a lot. I would probably say the Eventide H9, just because it can do a lot of different stuff. And then a Nova delay. I think that's 4. And then my 5th, because the H9 can do all that stuff, it doesn't matter. I just like it for modulation. 5th would be, oh man, my go-to would be, say, Big Sky, but there's a part of me that doesn't want to, so I probably would say the GFI Specular Tempest. That's what I would say.
Okay, so just to recap, for Brian's Desert Island, we have the Jackson Audio Prism.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Mulholland Drive.
Yep.
We have the Eventide H9. We have the Specular Tempest, and what was the other one? Oh, the Nova Delay.
Nova Delay,
then Specular Tempest.
Yep.
Got it. Now,
that's me.
Qualifying these pedals, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
So you've laid out the 5, and it's not going to be that easy. Why these pedals? What differentiates them from all the other choices that are out there? Could you go pedal by pedal and kind of qualify each of these choices?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so starting off with the Prism, you listening or watching or anything, there's no diagrams or anything, but just like from past experience, having the opportunity to really try a lot of these pedals, the battle between first and like tone shaper preamp kind of pedal, it's always come down to like the RC booster or the Prism. And I just like the Prism just for the tonal clarity of it all. The nice soft switches, the robust enclosure, and their overall tone, and there's a low, medium, high option, as well as amp, color, and transparent modes. So there's a lot of options when it comes to tone shaping, which I like because I use different guitars. I can easily increase the body or decrease the body or the tone, which a lot of, that's the thing, a lot of pedals don't have body knobs. So, and that's where people that, I have a Duo Jet. I love Gretsch guitars. So I have a Duo Jet and a White Falcon, which are 2 significantly different tonal guitars. So I can either remove some body if I'm using the Falcon, or I can increase the body or whatever. And it's just overall a really cool pedal to get to mess with. Mulholland Drive is really simple. I like simple. I don't like these overdrives that have 50,000 options or presets, or other pedals that you have to have manuals and you have to click both dip switches and turn this one knob to access this fun preset or whatever. I'm not all for that. I'm for that volume, gain, and tone. That very simple. I wish it had a soft switch on it, because it has a triple pull double throw switch on it, so it's pretty loud. So that's why I run it through a soft switcher unit. And then moving on to the H9. The H9, honestly, it just does so many different things really well. I really like the Leslie sound from the H9 a lot. Josh Smith got me hooked on that sound when we were building his board. But that one, it can do a lot of different stuff. Reverbs, delays, modulations, especially if you get the max, looper, tuner. There's a tuner in it too, so that's helpful. Screw you, headstock tuner. No. So yeah, it's a great thing, and using obviously desert island, so probably not a phone because it has like a Bluetooth app. But it does a lot of really great sounds, and it has a lot of great options and flexibility. It's cool because it's nice and small and compact, like the Nova Delay, but you still get some good tones. So, moving on to the Nova Delay, I actually have one in my drawer going on a board from myself. It was my first delay pedal I had, and then I've gotten other things in the timeline, but I've always went back to the Nova Delay. There's just something about it. There's something about the tone of it. I only stay on like the ping pong effect or the very first effect on it. I'm not very crazy with my delays. I'm really simple. So it's just it's just been one of those staple items for me. So
do you have yours modded with MIDI?
Mine personally, no, because I don't have it going on a MIDI controlled board. I would like to probably mod it MIDI. I've actually had a couple modded with MIDI, and then as any other guitar player, you sell it, you get something else, and you regret you sold it because you got that, and you should have kept it. So, I've had it a few times modded MIDI. I had the original, JV, I can't remember who the guy is, JV something, JVH or something. I don't know. He used to mod them where you could do the foot switch, like scrolling feature, which blew my mind because if you ever tried scrolling on a Nova Delay, you have to hit like the tap switch, then the on-off switch, and then you turn the unit off or you mess up your BPM, and it gets really confusing. So no, I've had a couple of the different units and mods and stuff, but yeah, so it's just always been a staple. And then the Tempest, like if I didn't pick the Big Sky, it would be the Tempest just because of their tweakability if you're using like an editor. There's some parameters you can do. You can set different presets. I'm all about like just does it sound digital? Does it like, even though it is a digital pedal, it just overall has a really nice warm sound. So that's my 5. That's a lot, but that's my 5.
All right.
Grant?
Grant, what do you say?
I thought through a couple. One where I wasn't sure if we were going to be allowed to use multi-effects or not. So I kind of have a simple one. My simple one, and I have to say, before I get into these, the thing that led me to choose these pedals was thinking back to a time where I sat down in front of an amp with just one of these pedals at a time, and I just got lost playing. So inspiration for me was a huge factor in why I chose them, more than anything else. Because if I'm on a desert island, I want to sit in front of the amp for hours. I don't want to get annoyed or bored and walk away to the palm tree. So I picked first Death by Audio Apocalypse, which is a Fuzz. It's a big old pedal, but I figure I'm not flying or moving anywhere to different gigs, so this thing's going to sit in one spot. After that, I went with, this was a pre-headstock tuner. I went with a Polytune with a buffer, because you got the good buffer in there that we chatted about lots on the show. After that, I went to a Sick As by Bondi Effects. This is a pedal I turn on, intending to turn it back off, and when I do, my guitar just doesn't sound as good. So this is another Klon-based pedal. It's not, super gain heavy, depending on the version you get, but it just sounds great going into an amp. So I got the Sick As on there. Then I went with a Moog MF104M, which is their analog delay. The reason I chose this, again,
I've got a lot of really big pedals on here.
Yeah.
Big old pedals. Setting them up in the sand. I hope that the knobs last and we're good to go. But the reason I chose this one, it's an analog delay. It's super warm. I'm not going to be playing any stadium style stuff on the island, so I can go for warmer repeats here. I don't need a DD5 or DD7 or whatever. It also has a drive knob. The overdrive on this sounds really good, and it has a modulation section for the delay, which also sounds really good. So that pedal in my mind is just, it's great to look at, better to play. And so that's one of my favorites. And then lastly, I just went with a simple stereo wet by New Neighbor. Which is it's just 3 knobs, super basic. But again, I can remember multiple times sitting down in front of an amp and just getting lost in playing with that pedal alone. And they've come out with a ton of stuff since then, which I haven't tried as much. So their newer stuff might be even better, but love those pedals. So that's kind of where I would sit with those. Definitely based on just times I've had and got lost playing. If I was to switch it up and I was allowed multi-effects, I'll go through this super quick. I would go with a Chase Bliss MK2 because it is very versatile and I'm on the desert island, so I'll have plenty of time for presets. I would use up one of my pedal slots for expression and I would add that to the MK2. Again, a tuner, so now I'm up to 3 pedals. The Polytune after the MK2, because the MK2 likes to see your guitar. If possible. And then Eventide H9, I chose that for, I know this would be maybe a point of something people might care about listening. I chose the H9 over the HX Stomp, even though the HX Stomp is more feature heavy and arguably has better, in air quotes, features and options on it, because the H9 algorithms just sound better, in my opinion. I am less of a Line 6 fan if you're going strictly on tone or the sounds it puts out, even though the features are incredible. The amp sim is awesome on the HX Stomp, but the H9, when it comes down to just the sounds it puts out as a multi-effects unit, in my mind, it just works better for me. I like it better. Yeah. And then lastly, I went with the Mercury 7, which is Maris's reverb. Again, a pedal I've just sat down with and just great. Absolutely love, but it's a bit more complex than like a stereo wet. So I left it for this board. And then for either board, for power, I went strictly for a pedal power supply that would last forever. And so I went with like a Chox power supply system. So those are my pedals. Those are my 2 Desert Island boards.
Those are good.
And you sort of qualified them as you went, which I appreciate.
I was trying to multitask for you, Mason.
Now, just presumably, in this wasn't part of the original question, but I just want to backtrack a little bit because I think it'd be important contextually. These in the Desert Island, presumably, we're going into some sort of amplifier on this Desert Island board. Let's just go back to Brian real quick. What amplifier is this going into? For the purposes of the Desert Island.
See, I'm stuck on it's at
pod.
the red pod that looks like a peanut. The kidney. No, shoot.
So we have power on the island. That's great. We're also going to
have we're all trapped on the island, so 2 of us are cycling for power as the other guy plays.
And depending on the size of the amp, it'll determine how hard we have to work.
Oh my gosh. Shoot. The problem is I have a lot of favorites. It's just there's a lot of amps I haven't tried.
The island doesn't care.
The island respects no man's amp choice.
I'm gonna say
this is the Noah's Ark of amp decisions.
I know. Well, I have one that I like. I have one I would think of. I've always wanted a 2-rock, so I've played on 2-rocks. But even wanting to say a 2-rock, I'm already leaning towards saying an AC30.
Oh, beautiful.
I just love them.
A 2-rock AC30.
No, I mean I want a 230. No, I mean I want a bunch of amps. There's amps I haven't tried, like Benson amps. There's stuff like that I've never been able to try. But and I've tried deluxes and stuff, but I've always leaned towards that AC30, and I love it. Plus, that has like that built-in tremolo and reverb tank. So I mean.
Well, it depends on which one you get, but
I had the one that had all that in it, but yeah, so that's my pick.
All right, AC30, and Grant and Brian in guitar. You can only take one. You taking the Duo Jet? You taking the Strat? What are you taking?
Well, if I took the Falcon when we finally all lose power because we're on an island in the middle of nowhere, I could still play, but technically I could do that with a Strat. I would tell you the Duo Jet.
Okay.
Personally, I would take no. I would actually say, I want a Black Penguin Gretsch technically.
Okay, Black Penguin AC30. Okay. Yep. All right, Grant, and for guitar and amp choice for you. This rig?
I should have mentioned, this also definitely came into my thought process of the pedals I chose, because I would, with the overdrives, use them to push the amp a little bit, and I would be going for a lot of breakup on the amp. My amp choice would be an HC30 by Matchless, which
not
is
a DC30.
Well, HC, I already have the HC, and so that's the head version for anyone listening, rather than the combo version. So yeah, we could go HC or DC, but yeah, I'd probably choose that. Very powerful, very loud, which on a desert island, you have no one to worry about. You can crank that thing. So I'd do that. And then guitar, I'd probably want something with a Bigsby on it. If I'm going to be sitting there playing by myself. So I'd probably do something like, I'd probably go White Falcon for my guitar, which I do not own, but again, have had moments of just falling in love with playing that guitar. So yeah, I'd probably do something like that.
Nice.
I will say, when I was 16, I think it was 16 or something, I was playing at a Guitar Center on a White Falcon, and I was like, one day I will buy this guitar, and I even took a photo of it. And exactly 10 years later, to the day, I had bought my first White Falcon. So like it was a very crazy thing, but yeah, White Falcons they're glorious.
They're a gorgeous guitar.
They are.
But you almost need, I feel like if I was on a desert island, I would almost need my own guitar tech for that guitar, because they can be quite finicky.
They can, see, that's the thing is I don't have a lot of issues. Like, I do the string changes, I upgraded the bridge. That's about it. That's the problem is everyone puts like 9s or 10s on them for strings, but you have to do like 11s. Like to really
I'm an 11s
keep it
guy
in
as
tunes.
well.
Yeah, like I do 11s on everything, but yeah, no, I agree, because like Michael Guy Chislett, he has his own signature, and they're always doing stuff with it. Or people are always like, "Oh yeah, you always bet that gets out of tune." I'm like, "No, not really, and don't have an issue." But what about you, Mason? I'm looking forward to hearing what you got.
Well, I've been considering my options as you've all described what it is that you've done. Well, so we've been the headstock tuner has already been satisfied, so that's one thing. I'm definitely a Strat guy, so I would if I were taking a guitar that I have, I think it would be my Rory Gallagher custom shop Strat.
Nice.
And what would I go into first? Tough question. I'd probably say, I'm just trying to work backwards in my mind so that I don't give too many pedals.
Yeah, you don't want to have 4 overdrives and then be stuck on the back.
So I'm gonna work backwards. So for reverb, and this is going to be a controversial choice, given that I've very, very much doubled down on the Hardwire RV7, but I've recently had a come to Jesus with reverb, and the Source Audio Ventris, follow me here.
Yep.
Is one of the things, the drawbacks of the RV7 is it doesn't have MIDI, and so if you're into presets, there's nothing you can do except get another one. The Ventris very much recreates a lot of those kind of classic rack reverb sounds, which are kind of my thing. And it also has the dual engine reverb, so you can have 2 separate reverbs on the left and right. You can have parallel reverbs, or you can just have cascading reverbs one into the next, or you can just have a single reverb. There's so many different ways to use it, and it sounds really very much the part. The guy that designs all the Source Audio stuff, his name is Bob Chidlaw. he was from Kurzweil, who was a competitor of a lot of the kind of classic rack units of the 80s and 90s. And so he's very familiar with kind of what the gold standard is, and was very much a part of kind of trying to create competitive products that sort of aligned to what people were looking for out of reverbs at that time. And this pedal is absolutely incredible. So working backwards from the amp, I'm going to say Source Audio Ventris. For delay, I am going to say the Boss DD500, and I've always maintained that is the best sounding multi-effects delay out there, better than the fill-in-the-blank ones. When people say, well, have you tried a blank? Yes, I've tried it. And I can
but
tell
have you tried a timeline?
Yeah, but have you tried that? Yeah, and I can tell you if many of the delays that a lot of the multi-effects are trying to recreate were already Boss pedals before they were the multi-effects that whatever company X has made. So this is really great. My favorite setting on it is the vintage digital delay, and that's kind of emulating the Roland rack units, and it sounds absolutely amazing. It's an amazing sounding pedal. You can also do kind of what you would do on a lot of the old vintage stereo delay rack units, where you can set separate times for left and right. So I like doing a thing where I'll go double the speed on the left, or double the time on the left, and then maybe a little less mix, and then half time on the right, and then cut the mix down and maybe increase the repeats, increase the mix and increase the repeats on the halftime delay. So you can get some really interesting sort of textures out of it. So that's two pedals. So that's reverb, that's delay.
I gotta ask real quick. Do you do it to where you can stack delays, or do you have it set up to where it's only one individual?
I usually just set it to one. I usually set it to the vintage delay, which is like the rack one, and then I just change the speeds and the mixes on each side.
Got it.
And then let's see. I love chorus. And I would say lately, the chorus that I've been most impressed with has been the Boss DC2W, the Dimension
Beautiful
C.
pedal.
Yeah.
And it has the Dimension D toggle switch, so you can put it in the rack unit setting for the Dimension D, or you can put it in the stock Dimension C setting. And I like that this chorus does a certain amount of detune as well as the chorus. So ordinarily I'd like to run a micro pitch after chorus. But in this case, I think if we're just going with one, I think it kind of gets the closest to the vibe that I like for chorus. So I would go with the DC2W. So that's 3. This is where it's going to get hard. Okay, the fourth pedal I think has to be a tube screamer, and I'm not very particular on the tube screamer. I know a lot of people have really dogmatic opinions on whether it needs to be a TS808 or a TS9. I of course I notice differences between them. However, as a tube screamer user for many years, I feel like I can still get the sound that I need out of really anyone. I could go to Guitar Center and grab a brand new TS9 and be able to get the sound that I need from a tube screamer out of that, or a TS Mini, which I have on one of my boards as well. Although one that I have here that's my favorite one is an 80s TS9, so I'd probably put that one on there. And then the last thing, which this is a tough one because I like Univibe, but I think I might like Fuzz a little more, so I'm going to go with my Prescription Electronics Experience pedal, which has fuzz and octave and a swell feature on it, which is kind of like almost like a inverted octave type thing. And I would go there first. So it'd be in order of signal path. It'd be Fender Stratocaster, Roy Gallagher Custom Shop, into the Experience Fuzz by Prescription Electronics, into the TS9, into the DC2W chorus, into the Boss DD500, and then into the Source Audio Ventris. And I might even reverse those. Sometimes I do reverb before delay, depending on what I feel like. And for the amplifier, This is a tough one. I'm kind of like, looking around to see what I would go for. I think if I were to stick with one amp, tough one. I think my most versatile kind of amp that can do great cleans and great overdriven tones is I have a 67 Super Reverb, and I would use that.
I like that.
Not bad.
Yeah.
I like that.
Which is going to be lost on this because I have all those stereo pedals, but I can only go mono.
Sorry, man.
Hey, I mean, yeah. I think we all see. The funny thing is like, I never use, like, everyone uses Fuzz. I don't like you both. I think you both picked Fuzzes. I don't know. Maybe I'm just using it wrong.
I think it's definitely like, I think it's a stylistic thing too.
Yeah.
And I don't really use it. I don't use my Fuzzes that over the top. I almost kind of use them either as like a rolled down guitar sound where the volume, where the volume on the guitar is rolled down and it can kind of create some glass to a Strat. And I think that sound is really good. I don't usually use it full up. Or if I do, it would be abbreviated. And if I do, I can almost use it like a distortion pedal in a way. Gotcha. I don't usually go that over the top. The octave setting, I don't use really that. I mean, I like to play it, but I don't have any musical context where I could use it.
Gotcha.
So I don't know. I like that pedal a lot. I think one of the guys that I think sounds really good with that pedal is guys like Doyle Bramhall and people like that. And I think that's kind of a cool. The Prescription's kind of a cool pedal for that. And then also, if you're a fan of Jimi Hendrix, you can, the whole vibe of that pedal is to try to get some of that in one box where you have kind of the octave sound, the fuzz sound in one.
Yeah.
But man, yeah, it's cool. And I mean, Tube Screamers, I almost just leave them on a lot of the time with a Strat, even if it's not a lead tone or a So
I think that's the best thing about a fuzz as well, is you almost have to, if it's a good fuzz that's working well with your guitar, the fuzz pedal itself and the volume pot on your guitar are kind of one unit, and they have to work together. And you can just get so many sounds with that. And some of the times that I would use fuzz all up is with, in my context, I don't think I've ever had a great octave fuzz, so I had a nanopog after. And you can get some huge sounds with, like, just thinking single low notes and, maybe an up-tempo song or something with fuzz and octave on, and it just blows up. It takes over in the best way possible. And then when you think about that mixed in with neck pickup or bridge pickup, you have a whole nother palette between those as well.
Yeah.
So fuzz can be, it's really easy, I think, to think about fuzz as just, it's on, it's loud, it's abrasive, it overtakes the mix, but then you throw in that volume pot on your guitar and all the control that adds and dynamic, and it just opens up the whole sound.
And I've heard a lot of people say that they suggest not using the fuzz just alone, like using it with an overdrive, because I guess, I don't know, is it like, do you guys run the overdrive on the same time with the fuzz or separately? Because someone was like, oh yeah, everyone makes a mistake by not running a gain stage with the fuzz. I always thought that was interesting.
I think it's an interesting comment. In terms of, you make, like, this person, and I could be misquoting, but makes the mistake of running fuzz into overdrive. I think goes back to what we've talked about so much in the past of, I personally just use a fuzz and then I might run it into an octave. And that's the sound that works for me. And maybe for this person or other people who said it with gain after as well, additional gain or additional overdrive, that obviously works for them and gets that sound. But I don't think either one is going to be right or wrong. I think the thing that would be a mistake is taking someone's word for it.
Yeah, oh yeah, for
pushing ahead on that sound, even though it's not connecting with you, which you know what I mean? And I know you're aware. I'm not pointing this out to you, Brian. I think just for the people listening, like, find the sounds that work for you. And if someone says, like, no, that's wrong, it's like, it's working for me pretty well. I'm loving it. Yeah. It inspires me to play more guitar and write cool lines. Like that's the whole point of this thing, So
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think as far as gain pedals after fuzz, sometimes people will like it because it can kind of help tighten it up. Because sometimes the fuzzes can be pretty, can be pretty overpowering, and so sometimes it can be nice to tighten up the bass a little bit. I think it depends on what it is that you're going for. Like if you really want, sort of the vibe of a Jimi Hendrix fuzz sound, it's kind of unencumbered. It's like you got this, really fat fuzz sound, and also a lot of his tone too is cleaned up fuzz sounds, and it just sounds really glassy and kind of bell-like on a neck pickup. And so I kind of like using the fuzz for that as much as I like it on other things. So it's a nice way to kind of get a few different sounds out of it.
Yeah.
And any of those into a super reverb is pretty glorious tone, because the super reverb is kind of it's the unique Fender in that it was the only one that ran at 2 ohms. And it can get pretty kind of, it has a beautiful breakup, and they can also sound really gorgeous clean. So there's some characteristics of it that break up a little different than other Fenders. And then it still has the beautiful clean element, and it takes fuzz is great.
That's awesome.
I use Kendrick Black frame speakers in it though, so that's not original, but those are great speakers for a super reverb. If you're a super reverb person, you need some new speakers, and I believe they're made in Texas.
Which I have to say is another hugely underrated part of amps. I remember going through a phase where I went through just speaker changes just because I wanted to experiment. And I'm on the opinion, especially even on this desert island thing, if you were able to add another pedal or have the option of changing out speakers is a game changer. It affects your tone so much. And until you've done it or, experimented a little bit, A/B'd speakers, you really don't understand. Like I didn't before I did. I was like, I don't think it'll be worth the expense. I don't think it's worth the efforts. It can't make that much of a difference. But it is night and day. It changes the whole characteristic of your sound. And I would absolutely recommend it for people that haven't gone down that path, if it's something that time and budget could allow for.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember watching a recent video from one of the YouTube, one of the pedal guys. And so when I know it was on the video, and I was like, man, it sounds really good. What do they do different? Like, how are they going direct? Are they miking it? And I texted him. He's like, man, we did a different speaker. He's like, they were just like, hey, these are the options. And he's like, I never really played it, so I tried it. And he's like, I literally got done playing in that video and went and bought like 6 of them online because they were that. He's like, that's how much I loved them. And he goes, and I had some friends because they're really hard to find.
What was the speaker?
Shoot, I can't remember the name. It was on that pedal show.
The EV?
No, I think maybe it was an EV.
They recently did one like a couple weeks ago on the Electro Voice speakers.
It might have been that. So it was with Andy. Andy did his whole video with them, and it was a different speaker than he usually used. And he was like, I just loved it. He goes, so my friends bought a bunch, and we were just gonna A/B them. I never heard what the results were, but he's like I could hear a difference. That's like the amp I use. I'm using like a creamback, and I prefer it. Sounds better with a gold speaker. Like it's just a Celestial Gold just sounds better. But I agree. Speakers make a massive difference. Well,
the EVM 12L is probably the most honest speaker out there because it has no distortion, no speaker distortion. It's so linear. We did a video recently, hasn't come out yet, not inspired by the pedal show guys, just sort of coincidentally, Sweetwater had commissioned us to make a video that compares the newest version of the EVM 12L Classic, I think it's called, to an original, which I had, and so we compared them. Same mic, same placement, same exact speaker cabinet, same amp, and we actually ran the amp with one as an extension speaker, so both speakers are running through the same amp at the same time.
Nice.
Same exact cabinet, same exact mic, to really show how close the reissue resembles the original, in various contexts, clean, distorted, etc. And we broke in the new speaker too, so it would be somewhat resembling, at least as far as the break-in aspect is concerned. And so that video will be coming out soon, but there are some differences, of course, with any new speaker. I actually think that the one that's closest to the original, if people really do want to go that EV route, and because your friend couldn't just go and get EVs unless they like the ones that were in the pedal show or the ones that Andy demoed, unless they got vintage ones, and they're pretty expensive, like $300 or more.
Yeah.
The Zakk Wylde ones are actually pretty good. And I would say in some ways maybe a little closer. And I know that for some of you, depending on the style of music that you play, Zakk Wylde, who coincidentally ends every sentence with the word brother. I don't know if you guys noticed that, kind of like Randy Macho Man Savage. You ever heard Zakk Wylde?
No, I haven't.
He ends every sentence with the word brother.
That was good, brother.
So I thought he should be the spokesperson for the Big Brothers and Sisters of America, brother.
Oh yes, of course, brother.
This is Zakk Wylde coming to you from Big Brothers and Sisters of America, brother.
Not confused.
America's brother.
Yeah. Anyway,
Gosh.
Brother
That's
Zakk
amazing.
Wylde has a pretty great speaker, and I think it actually sounds the closest to the original one. I think that I think it's a 300-watt speaker, as I recall.
Wow.
But man,
Wow.
I would say if the EVs, if I were gonna put EVs in something, or I had like most of the Dumble 112s had all EVs for the most part. Most Mesa Boogies from the 70s and 80s had EVs, especially the combos that were single 12s. Because there wasn't anything else that could take that amount of watts without exploding. If you had a 100-watt amp and you had a 112, that was kind of the only game in town. Unless you went with like an Altec, which some people did. There were some maybe JBLs that could do it, but I think the EV was kind of the most transparent, so to speak. But yeah, it's a cool speaker.
Interesting.
Crazy.
They make a big difference.
Yeah. So shout out to Zakk Wylde if Big Brothers and Sisters of America wants us to make an introduction. I can see what I can do.
Brother.
Make it happen, brother. Nice.
Love it.
Any final thoughts on Desert Island pedals, and maybe we could wrap up by talking about why this may be a valuable exercise, at least psychologically, that listeners may want to consider when thinking about their gear, because it is an important exercise to sort of, at least in your pedalboard building process or the vetting process of a new rig, to think about it in these sort of terms, because so often, and we've talked about this before, our eyes are often bigger than our stomach. We get to the buffet, and we waste a lot of the real estate in our stomachs on salad and breadsticks, and not on the ribeye. So doing this exercise sort of forces you to have to be strategic about the things that are really important to you.
Yeah.
And maybe you guys could kind of go through this quickly in our kind of closing sort of summarization of today. Like, what's the value in doing this, and why might this be something that you may want to do as a listener as you're starting to prepare for, let's say, a new rig build, whether that's one you're doing yourself or one that you're hiring Grant or Brian for. Why might this be a valuable exercise?
I do this myself. Since COVID, I haven't really been playing all that much, so I'll talk past tense, but I would do this often. And I can also say very honestly, I've never been more inspired to play guitar than when I have a small pedal board. I think there's a few different reasons for it. I think the main one is you are forced to think more about your technique and how to creatively come up with tonal solutions than having to rely on a pedal or a piece of gear on your board to do that thinking for you. And inevitably, I would start with a board that was usually about 5 pedals. And over time, I would slowly add 1, 2, 3 until my board got massive, and then I'd pare it back down again. But I don't think it's something that you should consider doing. I think as a guitar player, it's something that you should just do it. And I think you should limit yourself to a small amount, just less than what you think you need, to the point where, I used to get my overdrive sound by stacking these 3 pedals, but now I only have a TS9. How am I going to do it? And you're going to have to retweak your amp. You're going to have to tweak the settings on your pedal. You might have to use the volume pot on your guitar more. And I think it's so good for your thought process on guitar and how you approach the instrument. And I think it will only make you more creative to do an exercise like this. That's my personal opinion and my experience from doing similar things. I have not been brave enough to go below like 3 pedals. I don't have the skills there to like ditch a reverb as an example. But I think going from 10 to 15 pedals down to 5, I have never regretted it. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Ryan, any final thoughts?
Well, I'm not shaming people that want to have 11 overdrives on their board. Like
pedal shaming. Canceled.
Yeah, I'm not telling you that not have that huge that I'm gone. But like when it comes down to it, if it's on your Desert Island board, these are the pedals that you could see yourself using. Like, could you not see yourself using that in a live situation just because you're sitting on an island by yourself playing? Like, I've done it all the time too. Is like, I know I need this, I know I need that. That's why I don't typically have modulation on my board. Like, I have done so many of these Desert Island boards for myself, like small boards. I have like 30 different flat boards like sitting all around my office at home. But like when it comes down to it, I realized things I didn't need. I wasn't using that 4th overdrive, or I wasn't using that modulation and stuff. So it really helps you kind of figure out your essentials, and just like Grant said, utilizing that volume knob. Like the volume knob makes such a difference. Like the manager here, Brian, he utilizes the volume knob so much. I think he's switching pedals. Like, so he's like, oh, this is clean, I'll apply. I'm like, wow, did you click it off? He goes, no, I just used my volume knob. So like, that makes a big difference. So yeah, it's on your Desert Island board. Like, that's, it's a staple. It's something that you can get away with playing. And sometimes it just makes things so much easier. I'm not in a switcher system unit because it just takes so much time away from actually physically playing and practicing and getting better. So you spend more time programming than you do playing. So yeah, that's what I would say. I'm not saying don't get all that fancy stuff, but like there are simple options.
Don't get all that fancy stuff.
Don't get that bumper sticker. Don't get all that fancy stuff.
Well, guys, I thought that this was a cool episode. I think that it's a value to people to consider this. I think it's a value to, even if you don't execute your pedal board with 5 pedals in mind, I think it creates a certain honesty in terms of your relationship to your pedals and what the reality is. And again, the buffet analogy I think is very true. And when I was doing pedal boards, more frequently for the public, this was always a problem where people would overload the pedal board and they wouldn't properly vet and qualify every pedal in the context of their actual gigging and playing situation. And in doing sort of what Grant said, where you're maybe limit yourself to 5 and then you add things maybe incrementally as you're really seeing that the loss of those products or those pedals are consequential to the performance aspect of your gig, then you can add them back in. But I think it's better in the process, even if you're just like using a pedal train or whatever, to put pedals on to figure out what's necessary and really say like, has this rig been unaltered for 90 days? And if so, then that's probably what you really need. Yeah. And if it's like, what, actually I haven't touched that pedal in 2 months, probably not something that you're going to need, And so I think this is a good exercise just to kind of, help you really, be realistic about what are the requirements of your particular rig and what is kind of just, filler.
And I think as well with that, you just reminded me of this. There's a lot of pedals as guitar players. We've all been there. I'm probably there right now. There's a lot of pedals we think we're going to need and we think we're going to use and we're attached to. But if you think of when was the last time I actually turned it on? If you're going to just be brutal. And if, like you said, it hasn't been for ages, take it off your board. Put it on your shelf. You can look at it before you go to bed, but don't put it on your pedal board.
Yeah, and people want to gravitate toward the new, sexy, shiny. There's a lot of, boy, we know about the boy who cried wolf, but there's the boy who cried tone.
Exactly.
And,
and he never made it to Tone Town.
Yeah, he never made it to Tone Town. Nobody trusted him anymore because he cried tone too many times.
And I have to say, getting the new sexy thing, that's fine to do for Goodwood, Vertex, and Omilion. For all the other brands, it's not. Totally kidding. Totally kidding.
So I'll be releasing a quadruple filtered water bottle coming soon.
Buy it today for $19.99.
Yeah. Well, with that said, if Starbucks does want to do they want to get into MI, we're happy to receive them, and Brian will be pushing the water hard every angle. They're only free product, other than napkins, and the what are those things called that wrap around the cup so you don't burn your hands?
A cozy.
The sleeves.
The sleeves.
Oh, cozy. Yeah.
Sleeves. Cozies. So just
I'm glad you said cozy though, because people say koozies, and I'm like, it's called a cozy. Sorry, I got off track.
But we just want to thank again our sponsor, the Guitar Sanctuary, for making this podcast possible. And again, if you're interested in any of the products that we mentioned today, I believe a version, if not the actual thing, of almost every single item we mentioned is available over at the Guitar Sanctuary, as well as the pedalboard building services of Brian Omilion. If you want to take those 5 pedals and turn them in to a pedalboard, Brian is able to do that through the Guitar Sanctuary, and you can go over to their website, check out all the different products, and you can also email or message Brian through Instagram, where he's incredibly active and has got some videos on there that are almost about to eclipse 1 million views, so congrats to him. And if you're interested in joining us on our giveaway, where we have the opportunity to win not only a Goodwood audio interfacer, but also a Vertex pedalboard of your choice in 20 custom-made patch cables, custom lengths, using Mogami cable and mini cake plugs, you should join our giveaway, where you only have to do one of 2 things, if not both. You can, 1, subscribe to our new channel, Chairmen of the Boards, where this podcast will be airing in addition to all the common places that you get podcasts, Spotify, Apple, etc. But also write us a review on iTunes. And if you do both those things, you get double entry into the giveaway, so that you have double the opportunities to win this great giveaway. It's going to be running all month long for the next 30 days. So definitely do get involved. We'll have a link in the show notes as well as in YouTube, so that you'll know exactly where to find the information in order to register for the giveaway. Thank you for listening. We will see you next week.
See you guys.
See ya.